Let's get right into it. Number 10. The Pope once put a corpse on trial. Yeah, you heard that right. Imagine being so angry at someone that you drag their corpse into court to yell at it. Welcome to the 9th century, when the Catholic Church was going through what historians politely call a weird phase. The year was 897 AD, and Pope Stephen VI had beef not with a living rival, but with the dead Pope Formosus. So naturally, Stephen did what any emotionally stable man of God would do. He dug up the body. He dressed the corpse in full papal robes, plopped it on a throne, and held an official trial called the Cadaver Synod. And yes, they actually questioned him, out loud, in Latin, about his crimes against canon law, which, again, he was a corpse and therefore not really in the best position to respond. A deacon had to stand behind the decomposing pope and answer for him in a squeaky little voice, like some kind of medieval puppet show gone horrifically wrong. Unsurprisingly, the jury, made up of terrified bishops, found the dead guy guilty. They stripped his corpse of its secret robes, chopped off his blessing fingers, and tossed his body into the Tiber River. Because, apparently that's justice. But karma was waiting. The people of Rome were not cool with this. They revolted, arrested Pope Stephen VI, and he later mysteriously died in prison. And by mysteriously, I mean he was probably strangled because, again, medieval Rome didn't exactly do chill endings. So yes, once upon a time, the Pope literally yelled at a corpse in court, and it was official business. Humanity, you're doing great. Number 9. Napoleon was once attacked by rabbits. You know how powerful men love to show off with grand hunting events? Well, Napoleon Bonaparte decided to organize one, but instead of foxes or deer, his staff got a little too creative. His chief of staff, Alexander Berthier, ordered several thousand rabbits to be gathered for a massive hunt to entertain the emperor and his entourage, which sounds fun until you realize they didn't capture wild rabbits. They bought tame, farm-raised ones. Now, if you've ever seen a rabbit up close, you know they can be cute, but also, slightly unhinged. So when they were released for the hunt, instead of running away in fear, they recognized the humans as their usual food source. Imagine the scene. Napoleon standing confidently with his gun, waiting for the glorious chase, only to be swarmed by hundreds of fluffy demons charging straight at him like he was the world's largest carrot. Witnesses say the rabbits surrounded the imperial party, leaping into carriages, climbing onto soldiers, and gnawing at their boots. Napoleon, ruler of France, conqueror of Europe, had to flee in his carriage screaming while an army of bunnies pursued him across the field. It was basically Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but 100% real and much fluffier. So next time you picture Napoleon as a terrifying military genius, just remember, he once lost a battle to rabbits. Number 8. A war once started over a pig. Ah yes, the Great Pig War of 1859. A military conflict so stupid, it makes you question whether humanity should be allowed outside without supervision. This all went down on San Juan Island between the United States and Great Britain. Both countries claimed the island, but for the most part, everyone just coexisted. Until one fateful day when an American farmer named Lyman Cutler saw a British-owned pig rooting around in his potato patch. And he did what any reasonable man of the 19th century would do. He shot the pig. The pig's owner, a man named Charles Griffin, was furious. The British authorities demanded compensation. The Americans said no. Things escalated faster than a Reddit argument. Within weeks, both nations had sent military troops to the tiny island. Cannons were aimed, soldiers built fortifications, naval ships circled the shore. All because one guy couldn't handle a pork problem. The standoff dragged on for months, but, shockingly, no one fired a shot. Eventually, cooler heads prevailed, and they agreed to a joint occupation until the border could be officially settled. Today, the pig war is remembered as a shining example of restraint in international conflict. The only casualty? The pig. R.I.P. Bacon Pioneer.
So yes, humanity came this close to starting a real war over someone's future breakfast.
Number 7, the dancing plague of 1518. No, not a metaphor, not TikTok, an actual dancing plague. In July 1518 in Strasbourg, modern-day France, a woman named Frau Trophea walked into the street and started dancing. Not like having fun at a party dancing, like uncontrollably, non-stop, full-on possessed-style dancing. And then, other people joined in. Within a week, dozens of citizens were flailing in the streets, unable to stop. Within a month, there were hundreds. Doctors back then blamed hot blood because science hadn't discovered literally anything yet. So they told people to just keep dancing it out. They even hired musicians to help the sick release the fever. Imagine showing up to play your lute for a crowd of people who can't stop moonwalking into the afterlife. Because yes, some of them danced until they died, from exhaustion, heart attacks, and strokes. Historians today think it was probably mass psychogenic illness, basically stress-induced hysteria caused by famine, disease, and despair. When your brain can't handle reality anymore, it just dances through it. So if you've ever panic cleaned your entire house at 3 a.m. while crying, congratulations, you've experienced a light version of the dancing plague.
Number 6, the Great Emu War. Yes, Australia actually went to war with birds. And lost. It was 1932, the Great Depression had hit, and farmers in Western Australia were struggling. Then came the emus, giant, angry, feathered chaos machines migrating across the farmland in herds of up to 20,000. They ate crops, broke fences, and basically acted like the feathered embodiment of a biker gang. So the government decided, time for military intervention. They sent soldiers armed with machine guns to deal with the problem. You'd think it would be easy. Humans with guns versus oversized poultry, right? Wrong. The emus were tactical geniuses. They split into small, fast-moving groups, scattered at gunfire, and regrouped like feathery insurgents. The soldiers couldn't keep up. The guns jammed. The emus adapted. After weeks of failed ambushes and broken morale, the army withdrew. The birds had won. Australia, technically, lost a war to emus. Like, officially. The government quietly decided to just build better fences instead. So yes, humanity invented tanks, planes, and nuclear bombs, but still lost to some overgrown chickens with strong legs.
Number 5, the corpse of Peter the Great's lover. History has a lot of romantic tragedies. This one's more of a romantic horror movie. Peter the Great of Russia, the same guy who modernized an empire and loved shipbuilding, also had a thing for shocking displays of power. One of his mistresses, a woman named Anna Mons, was accused of being unfaithful. Peter was not the forgiving type. But the real nightmare came later, when another of his lovers, Maria Hamilton, got caught stealing from Empress Catherine and, small detail, aborting Peter's child. So, Peter did what any loving monarch would do. He personally supervised her execution. And then, because therapy hadn't been invented yet, he picked up her severed head, gave it a lecture on morality, and, according to witnesses, even kissed it. That's not symbolism. That's just psychopathy with a crown. Peter then kept the preserved head in his study for reflection, because apparently nothing inspires deep thought like your ex's decapitated remains staring back at you. So when you think your ex still watching your Instagram stories is creepy, just remember, it could be worse. Much worse.
Number 4, the exploding whale of Oregon. Yes, 1970, a simpler time, when America was still figuring out how to dispose of whales. A dead 8-ton sperm whale washed up on the Oregon coast, and city officials had to deal with it. The smell was atrocious, so the Oregon Highway Division decided to blow it up with dynamite.
because apparently they thought the explosion would vaporize the whale into small, manageable chunks for seagulls to eat. They used half a ton of dynamite. What followed was the most chaotic disaster in the history of beach maintenance. The blast sent massive, greasy chunks of whale flying through the air. People had to duck for their lives. One giant slab of blubber crushed a car parked over a quarter-mile away. Reporters screamed, seagulls fled. When the smoke cleared, most of the whale was still there. And now, everything nearby was covered in whale guts. The event was broadcast nationwide and became legend, not because it solved the problem, but because it redefined public works gone wrong. So next time your job feels pointless, just remember, at least you didn't blow up a whale and make it rain flesh.
Number 3. A king who believed he was made of glass. If you've ever felt fragile, you'll relate to this one a little too much. King Charles VI of France, late 14th century, suffered from what's now known as the glass delusion. He genuinely believed his body was made entirely of glass, that one wrong move, one bump, and he'd shatter. So he wore special reinforced clothes. He refused to let anyone touch him. He even sat still for hours, terrified of breaking. Royal visitors would find him wrapped in blankets, trembling, and begging them not to get too close. Imagine trying to run a kingdom while convinced you're basically a human wine glass. And yet, this wasn't even rare. During the Renaissance, glass delusion was surprisingly common among nobles and scholars. Historians think it symbolized the psychological pressure of being transparent under public scrutiny, a poetic medieval way of having anxiety. So, while modern people cope by deleting social media or buying scented candles, the 1400s version was believing your skeleton was crystal.
Number 2. The Great Molasses Flood.
Nothing says Boston like history, chaos, and carbs. In 1919, a giant storage tank holding 2.3 million gallons of molasses exploded in the north end of Boston. A literal wave of syrup, 25 feet high, swept through the streets at 35 miles per hour. That's faster than Usain Bolt, if Usain Bolt were sticky and deadly. Buildings were flattened, horses were trapped in the sludge, people drowned in molasses. Eyewitnesses said the entire neighborhood smelled sweet for decades, which sounds charming until you realize it was the scent of industrial negligence. The cause? The tank was poorly built and leaking for months, but the company just painted it brown so no one would notice. Classic corporate move. Cleanup took weeks. Rescue workers had to cut through hardened syrup with saws. Even decades later, on hot days, the smell of molasses would rise from the cracks in the pavement. So, yeah, next time you're annoyed about stepping in gum, remember, it could have been worse. You could have been engulfed by dessert.
Number 1. The CIA's Accidental Cat Spy Program. Because nothing says top-secret intelligence like strapping a microphone to a house cat. During the Cold War, the CIA launched Project Acoustic Kitty, a plan to use cats as living surveillance devices to spy on the Soviets. They literally implanted a microphone in a cat's ear, ran a wire through its fur, and added a tiny transmitter near its tail. Their goal? Train the cat to wander into Soviet embassies and record conversations. It cost millions, years of work, countless hours of cat psychology. On the day of the first field test, the cat was released near a park bench where 2 Soviet agents were talking. It trotted across the street, ready to make history, and was immediately hit by a taxi. Mission over, cat dead, CIA embarrassed. That one incident basically killed the entire program, proving that spy cats are slightly less effective than, well, literally anything else. Declassified documents later described the project as a total failure, which, to be fair, is the most polite possible way of saying, we turned a cat into a cyborg and it got run over in 10 seconds. So yes, the government once tried to make James Bond, but fluffy. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.